Thanks for joining us in this session where we are praying our way through the Brentwood Declaration, praying in words, but praying in jazz as well, which is pretty common around here at Brentwood Presbyterian Church in Burnaby, British Columbia. We have been working for a number of years in a special way with the jazz community, and I want to say thanks to three very fine young jazz musicians who work with us on a regular basis. Dan Reynolds on piano is one of our directors of music here at Brentwood. Conrad Good frequently plays with us here, and Tyler Murray also has been doing a lot of work with us and plays frequently here. So Dan and Conrad and Tyler, thank you so much for being here and taking part in this experiment in prayer and theology and jazz. Karl Barth was one of the great theologians, Protestant theologians of the 20th century. And Barth, in many places, and he wasn't alone in saying this, said that all good theology begins in prayer. And so if we think of the Logos dimension of theology, one of the older Greek meanings. We often think of it as kind of word or reason, but one of the older Greek meanings of logos is relationship. And so prayer is conversation that we have in relationship with God. And it's conversation that, as we understand it, begins with God taking the initiative, working through the Holy Spirit to inspire and instruct us, to help us play with language that we try out as ways of expressing the richness and the depth of God's embrace of us in forgiving and reconciling love. So you'll find those themes running through these prayers and this music. The Brentwood Declaration is a statement of the story of God's redemptive work with God's creation, and especially with human beings as part of that creation. In 2017, the congregation as a whole worked through a variety of versions and iterations, formulations of this. This is what we finally came up with, and we've been using it as our confession of faith, as our declaration of faith in our worship services now for a couple of years. And so we wanted to surround it with prayer, not only in words, but also prayer in the wonderful jazz versions of these hymns that you will hear from these remarkable young jazz musicians. So again, thank you so much for being with us. The Brentwood Declaration flows through 7 sections, and so we'll have 7 prayers and 7 hymns. Moves from creation up to rebellion, to forgiving reconciliation or reconciling forgiveness, to redemption, to church, to witness, and then to hope and to health. So just to introduce you to the hymns that we will be playing with those different sections. In creation, the hymn that we've chosen is All Things Bright and Beautiful. And then when we get to our rebellion against God's will, we're going to play Where Cross the Crowded Ways of Life. In reconciling forgiveness, the hymn will be Love Divine, All Loves Excelling. Redemption, we've chosen that wonderful hymn, Spirit of Gentleness. With church, one of the favorite hymns around here at Brentwood is Amigo de Cristo, Friends of the Lord. And so we've chosen that one. Witness, Sent Forth by Your Blessing. And then when we come to health and hope, it's I Come with Joy. So those are the 7 hymns that you will be hearing. I'll mention them again at the beginning of each prayer. But thanks again for being with us in this way. As we continue to ponder life in these pandemic times, dear family, you suggested that we explore the Brentwood Declaration and find phrases there that resonate with your redeeming coherence. And so we begin with the story of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and declared them to be very good. God then created humanity in all of our diversity, to cultivate blessing throughout the world. The phrases that resonate most powerfully are very good and all our diversity. This is your world, created in your love, for your delight. And that is good. Part of that delight is the diversity of forms and configurations of life that you generated through your ways of creating. In misrepresenting your purpose of blessing, revealed most fully in Jesus, your Christ, we have denied the goodness of your creation and desecrated your gift in our diversity. We treat your living earth as a thing to use for our controlling consumption. We fear your diversity as a threat to our dominance. We ignore your initiative and ongoing agency. And we delude ourselves that we are the masters in control. Awaken us to the blessings you bestow in your creating and the devastations our delusions impose in our destructing. We are seeking your coherence, dear family. How, from the formative stories that you have entrusted to us, can you inspire and instruct us to grow into a body of ambassadors that is faithful to you in its wisdom and effectiveness? Today, we confront the basic pattern that gets in the way of that. The basic pattern of our rebellion against that calling, that vocation. Rejecting the limits of their power, our ancestors rebelled against God's vision of goodness. By continuing to rebel against God's constraints, we compound the pain of toil, tyranny, trauma, and death. The story of our rebellion begins in Genesis 3. If we assume that we have a divine knowledge of good and evil, provided and nourished by eating the fruit of that tree, then we will generate death. It's a pretty stark prediction, and it turned out to be true. The toil, tyranny, and trauma that have flowed from our arrogant appropriation of divinity has been at the soul of our catastrophic conflicts throughout human history. Their impact has compounded over the generations. We cannot free ourselves from their tangle. We cannot repair them on our own. You have been with us, lamenting as all of this unfolded. But what have you been doing about it? As we continue this conversation, dear family, being drawn more fully into the coherence of your redemption of your creation, our attention is drawn again and afresh to the steadfast love that you have for your enterprise of forgiving and reconciling your world. Awaken us more deeply to your steadfast determination to save your world. But God never gave up, as the Spirit reveals in the Scriptures. In a definitive act of reconciling forgiveness, God became incarnate among us. Through our increasingly complicated and convoluted rebellion, we have thrown obstacles and raised barriers to the kinship of justice, kindness, and humility that you desire. In your wisdom, you've chosen a way to restore us into partnership, into a partnership you imagined in the beginning. And it is the way of the cross. It makes no sense to us when we seek to compose coherence for our lives out of the manifold fears that arise from the mangled messes that we have generated. We need to know your ongoing forgiveness. We need to know the reconciliation you desire in and through your human presence. Know us in ways that make you known to us. In your saving wisdom, dear family, you chose to make yourself known to us in a form that both shocked and sanctified us. The paradoxical particularities of your action continue to confront us, confound us, and challenge us. And so we need the gift of your humility to cultivate in us a teachable spirit, so that we may see your divine presence ever more clearly through the clouded mirror and window of our accumulated consciousness. Provoke us to imagine more fully the scope of your redemption. In the life, death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus of Nazareth, God restored the original goodness of creation as a commonwealth enjoyed on earth as it is in heaven. The Holy Spirit continues to work out the fulfillment of that act. It's not a single event. It's not a constricted image. It's not a clever formulation of ideas or rules through which we know you. It's by being drawn back into alignment with your creating, back into resonance with your music making, back into delight in the meaning of your kinship, of your commonwealth. You have already opened up that possibility for us. Just how you did it is a mystery. That you did it is our reality. Deepen our appreciation and our appropriation of your commonwealth, of your kinship. As you patiently and persistently, dear family, incorporate us into your work of redeeming your creation, you urgently encourage us to participate in that missioning and to take responsibilities for the contributions to it that you have equipped us to compose. Within the matrix of your creation, you scatter and cultivate little garden patches that we call churches, collectively the church. And you've instructed us how to participate in and contribute to your gardening, but left us lots of space to improvise with the basic steps, to adapt to the climate and soil conditions in the places where you have sent us. In and through your church, we cultivate your communal compassion, embodied and embraced through our life together. Through the Church Universal in which we participate, the Holy Spirit nourishes us to flourish as God's friends through worship, learning, fellowship, and service. In that bewildering and disturbing diversity, too often I have allowed my perceptions of others misrepresenting you lead to othering and rejecting them. Cure me of that sad madness. Awaken me to what is good and acceptable and true in their ambassadorship of your message. And bring us all into your divine trialogue in which we compose your future together as your friends. Continue to surprise us with your formulations of your faith. What is it that frees us, dear family, to consider and choose how we respond to your forgiving and reconciling love? A love that has reached out and embraced us to grow into our ambassadorship as your body on earth, as it is in heaven. What enables us to witness to your reality? You are teaching us how to show up as friends of your creation, as sowers of the seeds of your mercy and grace, as midwives of your future, as a sampling of your justice, kindness, and humility. By God's grace, in Jesus the Christ, through the Holy Spirit, we know what it is to be loved and to love amidst all the problems of the world. And we are equipped, empowered, and sent to sow the seeds of God's peace in all of our circles of influence. There's a mysterious mending that goes on in the relationships that you generate among us. You have chosen, to our consternation and horror, to entrust much of that hope and healing to your earthen vessels that we designate as human beings. You have not entrusted this just to some of us, but to all of us as stewards of the goodness of your creation. And so when we face the ravages of a pandemic, the tragedies of war, of natural disasters, we show up as your human beings caring for other humans. Cultivate among us your seeds of your faith, hope, and love. You have revealed to us, dear family, over and over again, that your vision for our missioning is a kinship, a commonwealth. Our hope and our health are generated by your hospitality, by your welcoming. In the end, God's love will transform the heavens and the earth and bring justice, peace, and joy to every dimension of creation. When we accept the gift of your insights, the dimness of our sight, the cloudiness of our eyes, the deafness of our ears, the confusions of our steps, when we accept that those things are healed with the hope of your salvation, and that the healing brings about our participation in it, then your vision for the salvation of the whole world, a forgiveness and a reconciliation of the whole world, loves us, draws us all back together. So compose us into that coherence of your consummation. I want to say a word of thanks to these wonderful musicians who've been working with us this afternoon. Dan Reynolds on piano, Conrad Good on bass, Tyler Murray on drums. We want to say our usual thanks to Burkeville Productions, to Ken and Marvin for their wonderful work with us, not only in this event, but throughout our missioning through jazz. So thanks to Ken, thanks to Marvin. And finally, and especially to all of you for taking some time and energy to listen in on our praying of the Brentwood Declaration. God bless.